If you don't read comic books, do you deserve to have an opinion on comic book movies, especially ones that are based on a specific comic book run? Because I'm asking this because I always see this pop up when movies are coming out, like Supergirl, most recently, for example, being based on Woman of Tomorrow, I think is the title. And then Superman, of course, being based on All Star Superman, the Batman being based on Long Halloween, certain Marvel movies based on certain Marvel runs, things like that. And I'm asking because I don't read comic books. If I have read any, it's been like very few and far between, very sparse. And that's not really like a protest against comic books themselves. I just frankly don't have the money to spend or the want to spend the money. When it can be spent elsewhere. Now, I'm not knocking people that do read comic books, but there's a certain like superiority complex I've noticed with people that do read them. I'm not saying it's every person who picks up a comic book, but there is a superiority complex of people being like, yeah, you clearly haven't read the comic book run that this is loosely based off of, so your opinion literally doesn't matter because I don't agree with it. And it's like, to me, I've never agreed with that and I've never understood that. Especially like when people are trying to say like, oh well, it doesn't matter if you like it or not because it's comic accurate. I mean, what does comic accurate mean exactly? There's like, I was telling my wife about this because she was surprised that I forget what it was exactly, but she was surprised that something happened to a character in the comics. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, if you go, you could pretty much find a certain character in any scenario in the comics at some point. Like, especially if they're a big character, like, say, a Batman, Daredevil, Superman, Spider-Man. You could say anything is comic book accurate depending on which comic run you're taking from. Now, obviously, some comic runs are widely acclaimed and beloved, while others are not. But that's besides the point. Because, I hear this pop up a lot of being like, yeah, well, it's comic accurate, so your opinion is invalid. And I think there's a lot wrong with that. The first of which being, what I just said. Comic accurate doesn't really mean anything because there's millions of comics. I mean, anything could be comic accurate, technically. The second part of that I, take issue with, I guess, is the sheer opinion or matter that like you can't have an opinion because you are not educated on the comic books, and I just super hard disagree with that because it's such like a gatekeepy kind of thing. Not to mention it's a movie. It's not even an adaptation per se. It is a movie in most cases, at least. It's not like something like say Avatar, where they're clearly adapting something. I feel like superhero movies nowadays especially have gotten to the point where you could go literally anywhere with it and there's so many original stories being told. Granted, they're very similar to comics, yeah. And there's a lot of similar like beats or scenarios, but for the most part, I would argue that movies, comic book movies specifically, are their own thing. I don't really think, following the comics to a T is necessary, nor do I think it happens a lot, if really even like at all. And I think it's funny too because a lot of those people that will say like you don't deserve an opinion because you haven't read the comics, are the same ones that will get mad when there's like a change that isn't comic accurate, like to a character's skin color or like lineage. And granted, I think that stuff can matter in the right scenarios, but I just think it's ironic, I guess, how that kind of works itself out, how it goes both ways. And it's just an interesting topic because I've seen it talked about a lot recently with the new Supergirl. I put out a video, if you haven't seen it, about my thoughts on the teaser trailer they released, and honestly, I wasn't a huge fan. I was more negative on it than I was positive. However, I'm still hopefully optimistic about the movie. I'm still going to be there day one, obviously, but I'm not gonna lie. I was hoping for more, especially for the first movie that's like really going to be delving into the cosmic side of the DC universe. I was hoping to see something actually different. And I think a lot of other people were too. But when you go online and you see people talking about stuff like, for example, how Kara's character, Kara, how Kara's character is in that like teaser and the little snippet we've seen of her in Superman, which definitely is not enough to know her character, but people are just guessing how she's going to act. And then you have people defending it by saying, yeah, well, that's how she was in Woman of Tomorrow. So, you can't be mad, which I'm fine with. Like I've already said in my other video, I actually don't have a problem with the way Kara acts because I feel like it gives her room to grow and progress as a character, kind of similar to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But at the same time, I just think that's I'm sorry, but like such a bullshit excuse. It's like, oh, so just because it's like this in the comics it means people are expected to like it. And maybe not even that, but like they're just expected to, excuse it or get over it, or they're somehow supposed to know that. The majority of people just don't read comics. That's just a fact. And I don't think that should be a requirement or like a barrier of entry for enjoying superhero movies. I mean, by all means, you guys can do that are comic loyalists or whatever you want to call it. But by doing that, you're limiting the reach, like undoubtedly. I mean, there's a reason movies like the Dark Knight trilogy and a lot of earlier like superhero movies were pretty popular, even though they weren't considered that like good technically. It's just because they were made for general audiences, and I can understand both sides of, the first of which being like, good, general audiences deserve to have superhero movies that they can enjoy too without having to read, 60 issues of a niche comic book run. But at the same time, I can also understand the side that wants their loyalty paid off. They want to see a comic they've been loving and reading for so long come to life on the big screen. I could see both sides. However, I think it's more fair to just to not have to expect your audience to know the comics or to do a bunch of homework. Because let's be honest, now more than ever, especially, I feel like superhero movies are not in the position to do that and to demand that from audiences. Like, sure, maybe if this was the early 2010s or, around that time Marvel was on their generational run, they were having people do anything and everything without even like having to like really ask or put it out there. I mean, people were just seeking it out. And that's where I think this like whole debate, I guess, comes full circle. It's like, if you make something good enough, you could have it be its own thing, but also like somewhat based on a comic book run that people love. And all audiences can enjoy it. But if you make something where it's super specific to a certain comic book run, that's really, really good for the people that love that run. But I can tell you right now, general audiences aren't going to probably vibe with it, or, if they do, it won't be many. And then, in turn, you can't get mad at people for not going to see it. So that's where and don't get me wrong, there is a lot of people that are definitely just like loyal to Snyder or one side of DC on both sides. And one side is just going to be spiteful no matter what and put their head in the sand and be like, la, 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 I'm not going to go see it, not going to watch it, la, la, la. And the other side is going to, there's two extremes, because the other side will like it no matter what, and this applies to Marvel as well. This happens at Marvel as well. Although Marvel obviously doesn't have like, two director sides, I guess people take, like Snyder and Gunn. But there are people on the Marvel side that just will like blindly love anything, and more power to those people. But I just think, I don't know, I've just noticed a lot of toxicity, especially around this like Supergirl trailer coming out. I just don't really get it. I just don't really get it. I really don't. I think it's super annoying. And honestly, I used to have some friends that were like this with like comic books, where you would give an opinion about something, and you were talking about the movie version for reference. You give your opinion, then they would basically just like tell you you're wrong, or it doesn't matter because you haven't read the Grant Morrison run of this specific comic, or this 6-issue fucking run that came out in the 90s. Like, yeah, sorry, man, I don't have all day to read all these comics. That's kind of why I go to watch superhero movies, so I could just enjoy my favorite heroes in an easily digestible form that's relatively affordable. I mean, a movie ticket, you could debate if it's affordable or not nowadays, but for the most part, it's more affordable than committing, because that's the thing, comic books are a commitment. I mean, if you want to follow a character's story, especially if there's like a reset in that universe, like DC, for example, if like Rebirth or New 52, you have to follow it all the way, unless you're fine with just stopping at a certain point with no real conclusion. I mean, I know there's a bunch of resets and different conclusions per se throughout comics. I know that. But yeah, I don't know. This is just something that's really been bugging me and I wanted to talk about. And I want to see what you guys have to say down below, because maybe you disagree big time. Or maybe you agree and you see where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to I guess start a riot, but I'm not gonna lie, it does piss me off how better than everyone else, some comic book readers act. It really grinds my gears. If I had to compare it to anything, I would. It honestly reminds me a lot of gaming. There's some people that will follow a game franchise every step of the way, certain Nintendo fans or Resident Evil or you name it. There's people that obviously do this. But then you have your casual gamer who just likes to they just like to play what they want to play and play what looks interesting to them and what they like. But then if they give their opinion, it's automatically null and void, because to that person at least, or to that other person, because they don't have as much knowledge as them, because they haven't played as much as them, and they don't appreciate the complexities of the franchise and the characters. And yeah, I don't know. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, even more than I initially wanted to / expected to. But I think this is something important, especially for today's day and age. It's definitely a debated topic, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you want your comic books exactly 1-to-1, then go read a comic book. It's the same thing as a book. I mean, I get mad myself, not gonna lie, sometimes when book to movie adaptations aren't exactly 1-to-1, like Percy Jackson. But at the same time, I also stop myself and I'm like, you know what? I am mad, but at the same time, I mean, there's people that enjoy this, and I have the books. If I want that story, I'll just go read that story. That's kind of the beautiful thing. It's pretty permanent for the most part. I mean, unless they, burn all Percy Jackson books. But nonetheless, pretty permanent. I can just go pick it up and read it. Just something to keep in mind for this time of the year, this lovely time of new movies being released and teased. It's really a delightful period on the internet, but when is it not in the comic book community? Anyways, that's all I have to say for this one. If you stuck around this long, I do appreciate your time. It means a lot to me, and I want to hear from you guys, like I said. So be sure to leave your opinions down below and try to keep it somewhat civil if you can. But until next time, I'll see you guys.